Richard Sullivan's hands freeze on his platinum cufflinks. The hotel suite television drones in the background, but one name stops his breath cold: Sarah Greene. The news anchor's voice cuts through his wedding morning preparations like a blade through silk. Local business owner Sarah Greene fights to save her family diner from demolition. The camera shows a woman with graying hair and tired eyes, standing in front of a small restaurant with peeling paint. She looks directly into the lens, and Richard sees the same green eyes that haunted his dreams for decades. The same quiet strength, the same dignity. His fiancée Victoria calls from the bathroom about flowers and photographers, but Richard can't move. Sarah Greene, the girl he left behind in 1987 when his trust fund kicked in and his father demanded he marry someone appropriate. The girl he promised to come back for. He never did. The news segment continues. Sarah's diner owes 3 months of rent. The landlord wants her out by Friday. She speaks softly about her late husband's recipes and regular customers who depend on her. She doesn't beg. She doesn't cry. She just explains the situation with the same calm grace she showed 37 years ago when he told her he had to leave town for college. Richard's wedding is in 2 hours. 300 guests. The merger with Victoria's father's company depends on this union. Everything he built, everything he owns, hinges on walking down that aisle. But Sarah Greene is losing her diner, and he remembers exactly why he fell in love with her. If this story is touching something deep in your heart, please take a moment to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us what we've lost along the way.
Richard Sullivan owns half of downtown Chicago. His penthouse spans an entire floor. His cars cost more than most people's houses. At 63, he's everything his father wanted him to become. Ruthless, successful, untouchable. But Sarah Greene worked at Murphy's Diner on the wrong side of town. She served coffee for $1 and smiled at truckers who left quarter tips. In 1987, she was 23 and saving money for community college. She had calloused hands and dreams that fit in a shoebox. Richard met her during his last summer home from Harvard. His BMW broke down outside Murphy's, and she brought him coffee while he waited for the tow truck. She didn't recognize his name. She didn't care about his watch or his leather jacket. She just talked to him like he was human. For 3 months, he drove to Murphy's every morning. He'd order pancakes and watch her work. She moved with purpose, treating every customer like they mattered. She remembered everyone's order, everyone's story. She made Richard feel like he existed beyond his father's shadow. They'd walk by the lake after her shifts. She'd talk about opening her own restaurant someday, about serving real food to real people. He'd listen and forget about board meetings and trust funds. For the first time in his life, Richard felt peace. The night before he left for his senior year, he kissed her under the streetlight outside Murphy's. He promised to come back after graduation. He promised they'd build something together. She believed him. His father had other plans. Sullivan Industries needed a merger. The Walsh family had the right connections, the right bloodline, the right kind of money. Victoria Walsh was pretty, compliant, and perfect for the family image. The marriage was arranged before Richard's graduation ceremony ended. He called Sarah once from his father's office. She answered on the second ring, excited to hear his voice. He told her about the engagement, about the expectations, about how their worlds were too different. She listened without interrupting. When he finished, she simply said, "I understand." She never called him back. Richard married Victoria 6 months later. The merger made him worth $50 million before his 25th birthday. He bought companies, built empires, forgot about small diners and green eyes. He became exactly what his father wanted. successful and empty. Victoria gave him 2 sons, who call him Sir and see him twice a year. She manages charity events and decorates their houses. They live parallel lives in the same gilded cage. She's filing for divorce after 37 years of marriage, citing irreconcilable differences. So Richard is marrying again. Victoria's niece Amanda is 28 and stunning. She loves his money and his status. She doesn't ask difficult questions or expect real conversations. She's perfect for a man who's forgotten how to feel. The wedding is a business transaction disguised as romance. Amanda's family needs his financial backing. Richard needs their political connections. Love isn't part of the equation. But Sarah Greene is on the television screen, and suddenly, love is the only thing that matters. She looks older, worn down by years of hard work and disappointment, but she still has that same quiet strength, that same dignity. She's not asking for charity or pity. She's just explaining what her diner means to the community, what it meant to her late husband, what it means to her. Richard realizes he's been holding his breath. On the screen, Sarah Greene walks back into her diner, and the camera follows her inside. The place is small, clean, filled with mismatched chairs and faded photographs. It's everything his world isn't. Real, honest, unpretentious. A regular customer, an elderly man in a work shirt, pats Sarah's hand and tells her everything will work out. She smiles and refills her coffee. She's not giving up. She's not breaking down. She's just Sarah, still serving coffee with grace. The news segment ends, and Richard stares at his reflection in the blank television screen. He's wearing a $15,000 suit. His hair is perfectly styled. His hands are soft from a lifetime of boardroom handshakes instead of honest work. But his eyes look hollow. When did he become this stranger? Amanda bursts through the door, radiant in her wedding dress. She's talking about photographers and seating arrangements. She kisses his cheek and tells him how perfect their life will be. She doesn't notice that he's not listening. She doesn't notice that he's looking at her like she's speaking a foreign language. Richard's phone buzzes. A text from his assistant. Car arrives in 30 minutes. Press is waiting at the church. He looks at the phone, then at Amanda, then at the blank television screen where Sarah Greene's face was just moments ago. For the 37th time, Richard Sullivan doesn't know what to do.
The church is packed with Chicago's elite. Photographers line the entrance. The merger documents are signed and waiting in Richard's office. Everything is perfect, orchestrated, planned. But Richard can't stop thinking about Sarah Greene. He stands at the altar, watching Amanda walk down the aisle. She's beautiful, poised, exactly what everyone expects. The organist plays traditional wedding music. The guests smile and whisper about the perfect couple. But Richard's mind is 40 miles away in a small diner with peeling paint and honest coffee. The ceremony begins. The pastor speaks about love and commitment. Richard says the right words at the right moments. He slides the ring onto Amanda's finger. She beams at him with practiced perfection. But when the pastor asks if anyone objects to the union, Richard's breath catches. He almost expects to hear a voice from the back of the church. He almost expects Sarah to appear, to stop this charade. She doesn't, of course. She's probably serving lunch to truckers and factory workers, making them feel human and cared for. She's probably not thinking about him at all. The reception is held at the Palmer House. 1,000 guests, champagne fountains, and orchestra. Richard and Amanda cut the cake while cameras flash. They dance to a song chosen by the wedding planner. Everything is documented, perfect,
empty. Richard excuses himself during the cocktail hour. He finds a quiet corner and pulls out his phone. He searches for Sarah Greene's diner. Murphy's is long gone, but there's a new place, Sarah's Home Cooking. The website shows the same woman from the news, standing in front of a different building, but with the same warm smile. The reviews are glowing. Customers call her family. They talk about her kindness, her genuine care, her amazing food. They describe exactly what Richard remembers, a woman who makes everyone feel valued. He scrolls through the photos, Sarah serving coffee to construction workers, Sarah hugging an elderly customer, Sarah laughing with a group of nurses after their night shift. She's built exactly the life she dreamed about all those years ago. She's happy, or she was, before the eviction notice. Richard's assistant appears at his elbow. "Mr. Sullivan, your new wife is looking for you. The photographer wants more shots." Your new wife. The words hit Richard like a punch to the chest. Amanda isn't his wife. She's a beautiful stranger who happens to share his name now. She doesn't know about his nightmares and his regrets. She doesn't know about the girl he left behind and the promises he broke. He drives through Chicago in his wedding suit, past the gleaming towers he owns and the restaurants that bear his name. He drives to the address he found online, to Sarah's Home Cooking. The diner is closed, but there's a light in the back. Through the window, he can see Sarah cleaning tables, preparing for tomorrow's customers. She moves with the same grace he remembers, the same quiet purpose. His phone buzzes constantly. Amanda texting, asking where he is, his assistant calling about the reception, the photographer wondering about the final shots. Richard turns off his phone. He sits in the dark, watching Sarah Greene through the window of her diner, and remembers what it felt like to be human.
Richard finally walks into Sarah's diner at closing time. The bell above the door chimes, and Sarah looks up from wiping tables. For a moment, they just stare at each other across 37 years of silence. "Richard." Her voice is exactly the same, soft and careful. He's still wearing his wedding tuxedo. His hair is disheveled from sitting in the car. He looks like what he is, a man who's lost everything that matters. "I saw you on the news." Sarah sets down her towel. She doesn't invite him to sit. She doesn't smile or cry or throw things. She just stands there, waiting. "You look good," Richard says, and immediately regrets it. She looks tired, worn down by years of hard work and worry, but she also looks real in a way that makes his chest ache. "What are you doing here, Richard?" "I don't know." It's the most honest thing he's said in decades. Sarah glances at his wedding ring, still new and shiny. "Shouldn't you be at your reception?" "I couldn't stay." He sits down at the counter without asking. "I kept thinking about you." "Don't." The word is quiet but firm. "Don't do this." "Do what?" "Show up here in your wedding suit and tell me you've been thinking about me. I have a life, Richard. I had a husband who loved me. I have customers who depend on me. I don't need your guilt or your pity." Richard flinches. "That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" He looks around the diner. It's small and clean and filled with the kind of warmth his penthouse will never have. Photos line the walls. Sarah with her late husband, Sarah with regular customers, Sarah at community events. It's a life built on service and genuine connection. "I made a mistake." 37 years ago, you mean?" "Yes." Sarah pours herself a cup of coffee from the pot she was about to clean. She doesn't offer him any. "We were kids, Richard. You did what you had to do. I had a choice. You had a family business and a trust fund. You had expectations." She sits across from him, but the distance feels like an ocean. "I understood then and I understand now. But I hurt you." "Yes, you did." She doesn't flinch from the truth. "But I survived. I built a good life. I was happy." Was. Past tense. Richard notices.
Tom was a good man, Sarah continues, talking about her late husband. He proposed right here in this diner. He helped me buy it, helped me make it into something special. We were married for 26 years. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. She sips her coffee, studying his face. He knew about you. I told him about the boy I loved before him. He wasn't threatened by it. He just wanted me to be happy. The words hit Richard like a physical blow. Tom wasn't threatened because he was secure in Sarah's love. He was the man Richard could have been, should have been. I'm losing the diner, Sarah says quietly. I know. I can help. No. The word is sharp, final. I don't want your money, Richard. Then what do you want? Sarah looks at him for a long moment. I want you to go back to your new wife. I want you to leave me alone. I want you to let me handle this myself. But you don't have to handle it alone. Yes, I do. She stands up, starts putting chairs on tables. That's what I learned after you left. I learned to handle things alone. Richard watches her work, remembering how she moved with the same efficiency 37 years ago. She's older now, her hands more weathered, but she still has that same quiet strength that drew him to her. I never stopped loving you. Sarah stops moving. For a moment, the diner is completely silent. Don't, she whispers. It's true. She turns to face him, and for the first time, he sees tears in her eyes. Don't you dare. Don't you dare come into my life after 37 years and tell me that. Don't you dare make me the reason you couldn't love your wives or your children or yourself. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? The tears are flowing now, but her voice remains steady. I made peace with what happened, Richard. I made peace with you choosing money over me. I made peace with building a life without you. Don't take that peace away from me. Richard stands up, reaches for her, but she steps back. You need to leave, she says. Sarah, you need to leave now. He wants to argue, to explain, to make her understand, but the look in her eyes stops him. It's not anger or hatred. It's something worse. Exhaustion. Richard walks to the door, then turns back. Sarah has already returned to her cleaning, as if he never was there. I'm sorry, he says. She doesn't look up. I know. The bell chimes as he leaves, and Richard stands on the sidewalk outside Sarah's diner, alone in his wedding suit, with nowhere to go.
Richard drives through Chicago until dawn, still in his wedding tuxedo. He doesn't go home. He doesn't call Amanda or his assistant or anyone who might demand explanations. He just drives and thinks about Sarah Greene's tears and the life he might have had. When the sun rises, he parks outside Sarah's diner and watches her arrive for the morning shift. She moves with purpose, unlocking the door, turning on the lights, preparing for her customers. She doesn't notice his car. She doesn't look for him. The first customer arrives at 6:30, a construction worker who greets Sarah by name. She has his coffee ready before he sits down. They talk about his daughter's graduation and his wife's new job. Sarah listens like his story matters. More customers arrive, nurses finishing night shifts, truckers starting long hauls, office workers grabbing breakfast before meetings. Sarah knows all of them. She remembers their orders, their families, their struggles. She makes each person feel seen and valued. Richard watches from his car, understanding for the first time what he walked away from. Not just Sarah, but the life she represents. Connection, purpose, service that comes from the heart, not the portfolio. His phone buzzes constantly. Amanda's texts grow from confused to angry to hurt. His assistant schedules emergency meetings about the merger. The press wants to know why he disappeared from his own reception. Richard ignores all of it. He drives to his office building, changes into a spare suit, and calls his lawyer. He wants to know about the diner's financial situation. He wants to know about the landlord, the debt, the legal options.
The lawyer's report is devastating. Sarah owes $18,000 in back rent. The landlord wants to demolish the building for a parking garage. Sarah has no legal recourse and no way to pay. Richard could solve this with a phone call. $18,000 is what he spends on wine in a month. But Sarah's words echo in his mind. "I don't want your money, Richard." He thinks about this all morning, through 3 canceled meetings and a dozen unanswered calls. He thinks about pride and dignity and the difference between helping and controlling. At lunch, he drives back to Sarah's diner. The lunch rush is in full swing. Sarah moves between tables with practiced ease, serving soup and sandwiches to working people who tip in singles and quarters. She's in her element, exactly where she belongs. Richard doesn't go inside. He sits in his car and makes a different kind of phone call. The landlord's name is Davidson. He owns 12 properties in the neighborhood, all of them run down and profitable. He's been trying to get Sarah out for months, waiting for her to miss rent so he can evict her. Richard offers Davidson twice what the parking garage is worth. Davidson accepts immediately. But Richard doesn't stop there. He structures the deal so Sarah owns the building outright, with no mortgage and no debt. He creates a legal trust that will handle the taxes and maintenance. He makes sure Sarah's name is on the deed. She'll never know he was involved. The paperwork will show an anonymous benefactor who wanted to preserve neighborhood businesses. Sarah will own her diner free and clear, with no strings attached and no debt to him. It takes 3 days to arrange. 3 days of lawyers and contracts and careful planning. 3 days of watching Sarah serve her customers, knowing she's about to lose everything. Richard doesn't sleep. He doesn't eat. He doesn't return Amanda's calls or attend his scheduled meetings. He just focuses on this one thing: saving Sarah's diner without her knowing. On Friday morning, the eviction deadline, Richard parks outside the diner and waits. At 9 o'clock, a man in a suit walks into Sarah's home cooking. Richard can see them talking through the window. Sarah's face goes from resignation to confusion to disbelief. She looks at the papers the man hands her. She reads them twice, then looks up with tears in her eyes. She's not being evicted. She's not losing her diner. Through some miracle, some anonymous benefactor, she owns everything. Richard watches Sarah hug the lawyer, then call her customers over to share the news. The diner fills with cheers and applause. Sarah cries and laughs and accepts congratulations from people who genuinely love her. Richard starts his car and drives away. He's given Sarah what she needs: her diner, her independence, her peace of mind. He's done it without strings or expectations or demands for gratitude. But as he drives home to face his new wife and his ruined wedding day, Richard realizes something that stops his breath. He's still in love with her, and now she's further away than ever.
2 weeks later, Richard sits in his penthouse office, staring at a divorce petition. Amanda wants half of everything. She's claiming emotional abandonment and public humiliation. Her lawyers are demanding damages for the ruined wedding and the broken merger. Richard signs the papers without reading them. He gives her what she wants: houses, cars, stock options, enough money to buy her own happiness. He keeps only what he needs: his company, his work, his empty apartment. The press calls it the most expensive wedding day in Chicago history. Richard Sullivan, they say, lost $50 million in a single afternoon. The merger collapsed, the stock price dropped, the board of directors is demanding explanations. Richard doesn't care about any of it.
He drives to Sarah's diner every morning for 2 weeks, but he never goes inside. He just sits in his car and watches her work, watches her laugh with customers, watches her live the life she built. She's painted the exterior of the building. New awnings, fresh flowers in the window boxes. A sign by the door thanks the anonymous benefactor who saved the diner. Sarah doesn't know it was Richard, and he'll never tell her. On the 15th day, Richard makes a decision. He writes a letter, by hand, something he hasn't done in decades. He writes about regret and forgiveness and the difference between love and possession. He writes about watching her through the window and understanding, finally, what happiness looks like. He doesn't ask for anything. He doesn't request a meeting or a phone call or a second chance. He just tells her the truth, that seeing her on the news reminded him of who he used to be, and that knowing she's safe and happy means more to him than any business deal he's ever made. He signs the letter and drives to the diner. Sarah is closing up, the same routine he's watched for 2 weeks. But tonight, instead of just sitting in his car, Richard gets out. He walks to the door of Sarah's home cooking and slides the letter underneath. He doesn't knock. He doesn't wait for her to see him. He just leaves the letter and walks away. From his car, he watches Sarah find the envelope. She opens it, reads it, and looks up toward the street. For a moment, Richard thinks he sees him in the shadows. For a moment, he thinks she might come outside. But Sarah just holds the letter against her chest, turns off the lights, and locks the door. Richard drives home through the city he owns, but doesn't belong to. He thinks about Sarah reading his letter, about the life he chose and the life he abandoned. He thinks about second chances and the courage it takes to start over. His phone rings. For a wild moment, he hopes it's Sarah, but it's his assistant, calling about tomorrow's board meeting and the damage control they need to do. Richard turns off his phone and keeps driving. He drives past his penthouse, past his office building, past the restaurants and hotels that bear his name. He drives toward the lake where Sarah and Richard used to walk, where they made promises they both believed would last forever. He parks by the water and sits in the darkness, listening to the waves against the shore. The city lights reflect on the lake's surface, beautiful and distant and untouchable. Richard Sullivan has everything he thought he wanted: wealth, power, success. But sitting alone by the lake, he understands what Sarah tried to tell him 37 years ago. Some things are worth more than money, and some chances, once lost, never come again.